I spent yesterday in the swamp and around some of UF staff, the team, and former players. And I'm going to tell you about some things that I learned yesterday and share some thoughts on UF going forward. But first, let's talk about McNeese State and what all went on in Gainesville. Yesterday was a good day to be a Gator. First of all, the weather, dare I say, comfortable. There was a slight breeze. It was never blazing hot, even during the day, not a cloud in the sky. It was perfect Gainesville football watching weather. Then the crowd. Guys, I can totally understand why there are some fans who may not show up for an FCS game the week after we put out the performance that we did against Utah. But you guys showed up. 88,000 plus were in the swamp to cheer Florida on against McNeese State a week before we have a huge game in the swamp. So props to everybody for coming, for using the tickets. Listen, the student section was packed before kickoff. Sometimes we don't even see that for huge games. So tip of the hat to the student section, who we know I'm a little hard on at times because I want you guys there early. Clearly, you must be listening to the show because you showed up and you were loud and excited to be there. And considering who the opponent was, the stadium was rocking. I expect obviously a much more intense environment next week, but it was loud, it was proud, it was exciting. It stayed full pretty much till the end. So all good things, especially considering Florida was playing as close to a gimme game as we have on the schedule this season. It's always a good day for college football, but even better when all of those stars align. You've got fans in the stands, the weather's beautiful. It was a good night. Okay, so there were some things that concerned me that I was pretty fairly positive on what I saw from the Gators in Gainesville. I'm going to start with the positives, okay? First of all, 34th consecutive home opener win. This is currently the longest streak in the country. I understand it was McNeese State, but listen, most other places are playing Patsies their first home opener as well, and they don't have this streak that we do. So a win is a win, and it was a good one for the Gators. I also was impressed by the few number of penalties. Florida only had 4 penalties for 20 yards. One of my main complaints against Utah was that Florida looked undisciplined and there were so many procedural penalties. But I also talked to you guys about how that's a really easy thing to clean up. And it looks like Billy Napier did that during the week between Utah and McNeese State because there really weren't the procedural miscues outside of the false start on the offense where they called it on the entire offensive line. The entire stadium laughed. But outside of that, they cleaned things up. I was impressed by the limited number of penalties. And y'all, the defense looked good. I am impressed by what I am seeing out of Florida's defense. We consistently got off the field on third down. I know some of us have PTSD from third downs in previous coaching administrations, and we might be seeking some therapy from it, but it looks like that might be coming to an end. Even when we were playing our true freshmen, our second and third string guys later in the game, Florida still got off the field consistently on third down. I understand it was just McNeese State, but for the last 3 years, our defense has looked bad, particularly on third down, no matter who we were playing. So I think this is something we need to celebrate. You guys remember the 2021 Samford game? You remember USF last year? Listen, this is an improvement. It's worth celebrating. This defense held McNeese State to 112 total yards of offense and only 6 first downs. And I'm excited. A lot of young guys saw the field too, and early. Really, really impressed with this latest crop of guys that Billy Napier has brought to Florida. He knows what he's doing in identifying talent. Florida's young guys are making plays all over the field, and that should really tell us what the future looks like. It is bright. I also was impressed with the running game. I think this was something that we said about the Utah game is that Florida just never could establish the running game, and it really felt like they abandoned it very early. And we have one of the most talented running back rooms in the entire country, so you need to use them. Well, they did. Florida rushed 51 times for 327 yards. That is averaging 6.4 yards per carry. and they dominated time of possession. I will take that all day long. If Florida can stick around averaging 6 yards per carry, whew, that would be amazing. Florida spread the ball around. We saw a lot of young guys touching it. Wilson got his fair share. We saw Mizell in there later on. Treon Webb had a touchdown. The ball was spread around, and it was spread around to a lot of young guys, which is something we want to see. Florida also had 33 first downs, which that means that the offense is clicking, right? It is moving on all cylinders. They had a 99-yard drive. They were able to move the ball exactly the way that they wanted it. All right. I don't have a ton of negatives, but I do have a couple of things that I want to address. First of all, the kicking game. Special teams, guys. Special teams improved in some areas, but this was a terrible way to start. Florida scores their first touchdown, then they go out for the extra point, and it's a botched snap, ends up going over the kicker's head. We do end up tracking it down, thank goodness, but extra points are supposed to be automatic. Florida has got to figure out what is going on in their kicking game. They've got to make adjustments because there is someone on that campus that can snap, that can hold, and that can kick an extra point. I would bet my life on it. It might not be the guys we have doing it, but there is someone there that can get that job done, and the coaching staff needs to find them. Another thing that I don't know if concern is the right word, but McNeese State gave up 5 sacks last week, okay? Florida only had, I think, 1 last night. Not getting into the backfield is not going to bode well for SEC play. I still need to see more speed and explosiveness from this D-line. Listen, they're bigger, but they're not faster yet. They are getting better. I'm seeing signs of improvement. Florida needs to be able to strip the ball and create sacks. And so far, that is not really happening for the Gators, okay? There was no turnovers in this game that Florida recovered. Florida had a turnover of their own, but they did not force any turnovers. They only had that 1 sack. That's got to improve. This defense, for all of its positives, and honestly, there are a lot, they have got to start taking away the football, though. On offense, I was a little concerned by the lack of explosive plays, but at least in the passing game, I think that that's likely by design. Essentially, you don't want to show your cards if you don't have to. Florida was in control of this game from the moment it kicked off, so there's zero reason to give Tennessee or any other opponent down the line more film on this team than you need to. So I understand that. And we were consistently getting 10-plus yard runs. And like I talked about, we did have multiple sustained long drives, and we didn't shoot ourselves in the foot. So that's a celebration. But explosive plays are going to help you win football games. Urban Meyer used to preach to his team the stats on having 2 or more explosive plays in a game and how that correlates to a victory. And it's true. And an explosive play is something that is 20 yards or longer. Florida just didn't have many. So hopefully that's something that will improve moving forward, but they are going to need explosive plays to win some of these tougher SEC games down the road. But overall, I think we did exactly what we were supposed to do against a crappy team. And one of the things that we preach on this channel all the time is about progression. First, you've got to beat the teams that you are supposed to beat in the way that you are supposed to beat them. Florida is supposed to dominate McNeese State. They're supposed to be able to get their backups in and their walk-ons and their young guys. They are supposed to be a lopsided scoreboard. And there was all of those things. Now, there's not a trophy that exists for doing what you're supposed to do. That was what you're supposed to do. But we saw multiple times last season where Florida didn't take care of business against teams that they should have been able to easily manhandle. Think about USF. So this is growth. This is improvement. Step 1, win the games you're supposed to win in the way you're supposed to win them. Now, step 2, we get to see next week, and that is win some of the toss-up games. I definitely think Tennessee would be considered a toss-up game, and the Gators going to need to start putting those together. Seeing this defense put together two really good performances in a row has given me some confidence in that squad and really honestly kind of made me a little bit more confident going into next week. And I do want to talk about Tennessee briefly in just a second. But first, I want to talk to you about what I saw out of the guys last night. We are blessed to be able to sit in a former players section and we get to see some of the interactions and what kind of goes on between coaches and players because of how close it is to the field and to the sideline. And I was honestly a little bit worried about the team coming off of a lackluster performance against Utah. But the thing that I was looking for, that I wanted to see the very most, was the mindset of the team. And guys, they were absolutely dialed in before this game. There was no lack of intensity on the sideline. There was no drop off. They were ready to go. This was not a team that was joking and laughing because they were playing McNeese State and they knew that they were going to win. Not at all. They were dialed in. They wanted this. When they made big plays, they turned to the sidelines. They wanted the fans involved. They were into this one, which sometimes is hard to do against an FCS opponent. The other thing that really stood out to me was Austin Armstrong. I know you guys see him on TV and you see how fiery he is, but let me tell you, it is another level in person in the swamp. He is intense. He did a safety dance on the sidelines. He was getting after his guys. He was celebrating with them. He was so into it. And I think that that's a really good balance to Billy Napier, who truly doesn't really show a whole lot of emotion on the sideline. He's the calming force, right? Well, if we think we need somebody to lay into players, don't worry. We have him. His name is Austin Armstrong. All right, looking ahead to Tennessee. They beat Austin Peay yesterday 30-13, but they did not look great doing it. In fact, Austin Peay had a lead in the second quarter, and Tennessee kind of piled on some points late, so it looks a little bit more lopsided than it was. They were not spectacular by any means. They haven't been spectacular in their first two games. Vegas has them as a 4-point favorite, and this is a massive opportunity for Florida to get a huge SEC win with a ton of recruits in attendance. There are a lot of guys that are going to be sitting in that recruit section on Saturday night. All right. We have an exciting week for you guys. We're going to do another round of the NCAA simulation against Tennessee with updated rosters. I know you guys love that against Utah. It was kind of something different and neat, and the feedback on it was great. So we're doing it again. We're also going to preview the game on Thursday live at 8 o'clock at night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We have an interview with another star from Swamp Kings that's going to be coming out this week. So you do not want to miss any of this. Click the subscribe button so you're locked in, and then take a moment to watch this video that YouTube thinks that you should check out.